In 2002, I discovered the research of Jim Shepard. From 1982 until now, he's been operating an investment service focused on benefiting by noticing changes early. Let's compare his results to some typical results. While the Dow Jones Industrial Average of 30 very prominent stocks within the US, it changes over the course of 3 decades, but 30 prominent stocks, that Dow Jones Industrial Average is up more than 16 times. It's more than 16 times higher than it was in 1982. In contrast, Jim Shepard's basic long-term conservative advice has produced an increase of over 60 times the initial investment from 1982. So a 6,000% gain, over 6,000% gain, or basically 5 times as favorable as just a buy and hold of the Dow Jones Industrial Average. So how has he produced results that are 5 times better than a buy and hold approach? Well, he's done it by selling, primarily by selling prior to major declines in stock prices, and then buying back into stocks after the declines were mature. So he would be able to identify somehow that stock rallies were mature and were about to decline, and then once there had been a decline, he was able to determine somehow that markets were ripe for a rally again, for a rebound, for recovery. But how did he know exactly when major declines were coming before they began? And how did he know when they were over? He simply used two very powerful tools, math and logic. And that's all the detail I'm going to give. Consider, however, that many others use those same tools to produce much worse results than his, and a few did even better than him. But over 30 years, he had pretty good results, 5 times as good as a buy and hold strategy across 30 years. So what made the difference for him? You know, he's using math, he's using logic, he's using the same things that many other people that say they're targeting the same kind of thing of, benefiting most from change. What made the difference for him? Maybe it was his willingness to benefit from change, as in his commitment to adaptiveness. What else could it be? Math is still math. Logic is still logic, right? Gravity is still gravity. Economics is still economics. This guy did 5 times as good as a buy and hold strategy, and he did a lot better than a lot of other people who were targeting to benefit most from change. Maybe his willingness, maybe his commitment was distinctive. In addition, by the way, to those long-term consecutive exits from the stock market when it was ripe for decline and then getting back in when markets had discounted sufficiently to where he was confident to get back in, confident that there would be a rise coming soon. In addition to all that, Jim Shepard also noticed a few especially lucrative opportunities when stocks were ripe for a very sudden decline, such as in 1987. This is separate from the 5 times as much profit as from a buy and hold strategy. Separate from all that, not only did he exit stocks before the decline in 1987 as part of his long-term conservative strategy, but he also entered some short-term aggressive positions. By identifying exceptional opportunities, these are very rare opportunities, he's specifically targeting identifying really exceptional opportunities. And by doing that, he produced gains in very short periods of time that exceeded the gains that it took the Dow Jones Industrial Average 3 decades to produce. If you didn't hear that correctly, I'll say it again. Or if you thought maybe you heard it wrong. In very short periods of time, like days or weeks, he produced gains that exceeded what the Dow Jones Industrial Average of 30 stocks took 30 years to produce. By doing what? By identifying what is changing. By really being committed and motivated to identifying early what's changing, then noticing early, being in position first, adapting behavior first, and then benefiting most. So once I saw Jim Shepard's track record, which was in 2002, and studied his research, which I've done ever since then, I recognized the simplicity of his perspective. He's not necessarily talking about willingness and commitment. I'm talking about the simplicity of his analysis. Not that it doesn't have some degree of complexity, but he has a simplicity in his language and a conciseness that I find insightful. I find it attractive. He also is insightful. He will make connections that other analysts I've read didn't make. And his stuff, his performance is kind of self-evident. His performance establishes the value of his perspective. So for the last 9 years, since 2002, I've frequently monitored his research, and he remains the one person that I consider to be the most credible investment researcher alive. I also appreciate many others, such as Robert Prechter, who was also famous for forecasting the stock crashes in 1987 and 2007, as did Jim Shepard. But there's no one that I know of who can match Jim Shepard's 3-decade record of accuracy. The degree of precision that he brought with his long-term conservative buy and sell market timing services, investment advisory services, that precision is unparalleled. It's 100% across 29 years now. However, investment forecasts are most relevant for investors, right? While both Shepard and Prechter forecast the decline in real estate prices years in advance, what about for people who do not have the credit scores to speculate in real estate, or the cash to invest in stocks? Wouldn't it be valuable to know in advance still, even if you don't have any of that context of being an investor, wouldn't it still be valuable to know in advance, years before, fuel prices would be making historic highs? Or to know the future of what fuel prices will be in the next 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 years? How valuable would it be to know specific ways to adjust your own budget priorities, to shelter your finances, whatever the specifics of your finances are, and know how to use legal systems to the maximum benefit? Or maybe you don't even know how, you just use them to the maximum legal benefit, given the support of someone who is a researcher, who is an analyst, who can take a look at your specific situation, know what's coming, know what's available in terms of legal regulations now and how legal regulations are changing over time, and put you in a position that is going to be distinctly advantageous to you. Would you like to know which industries are ripe to grow because of the next changes to the global economy, like over the next year or the next 5 years? Do you know which industries are about to contract as fuel prices rise further, pinching credit markets and governments and households, and the budgets of so many businesses as well? I'm going to tell you a little bit more about myself in the next section and why it is that you may want to consider the questions that I have to those, the answers that I have to those questions. Those are questions that you might find already valuable for me just to put out there. But why would you be interested in my answers? I haven't really got to that yet.